Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about positive versus negative feedback loops. So let's start by defining our terms. So a negative feedback loop is going to have the opposite effect as the stimulus. So let's say we have an increase. Now our negative feedback loop is going to lead us to a decrease in whatever the original stimulus was. So we had an increase and then a decrease. So our arrows are pointing in opposite directions here. Or we could have a decrease, and then our negative feedback loop is going to cause an increase. So we're having the opposite effect as the original stimulus. And this is going to help the body to maintain normal levels. So we have our normal level here. We got off of our normal level, and now we're going back to our normal level. Okay, and this is called homeostasis. This is going to be the most common type of feedback loop in our body. This is going to happen every day. Now, a positive feedback loop is going to enhance the effect of the stimulus. So let's say we have an increase. We're going to enhance the effect, so we're going to have a further increase. Or if we have a decrease, we're enhancing the effect, so we're going to have a further decrease. And this is only going to be used for certain circumstances, and it's going to need an off switch, because this increase is going to cause a further increase, and this increase is going to cause a further increase. And it will just go on and on and on unless we have some way to switch it off. So let's start by looking at an example of negative feedback. So our body temperature rises, and then receptors are going to send signals to the brain, and this is going to cause the body temperature to go down to the normal levels. So we had an increase and then a decrease. Our arrows are pointing in opposite directions. We could also have a decrease in body temperature, and then receptors are going to send signals to the brain, and it's going to cause an increase in body temperature. Our arrows are pointing in opposite directions. Now let's look at positive feedback. So we have oxytocin, and that's going to increase during labor contractions. And the receptors are going to send signals to the brain, which is going to cause more oxytocin to be released. Now this oxytocin being released is going to increase labor contractions, and these labor contractions are going to cause more oxytocin to be released. So it's a further increase. It's enhancing the effect of the original stimulus. And we can see both of our arrows here are pointing in the same direction. So now let's look at some example test questions. So positive feedback does what? Okay, so it either A, inhibits the original stimulus, B, has a positive effect on the body, C, enhances the original stimulus, D is always bad. So think about that for a second. You can pause the video, and then we're going to go through these together. Alright, so does positive feedback inhibit the original stimulus? So let's say our original stimulus was an increase. If we are inhibiting the original stimulus, then it's going to be the opposite. So we had an increase, and now we're going to have a decrease. So we can go back to normal levels. So this sounds like negative feedback. So this is not going to be the correct answer. Alright, now let's look at B. So it has a positive effect on the body. Well, that is usually true, but negative feedback also has a positive effect on the body. So this is not going to be our correct answer. So C, enhances the original stimulus. Okay, so we have an increase. Now we're enhancing the original stimulus, so we're going to have a further increase. So we can see both of our arrows are pointing in the same direction. So this sounds like positive feedback. This sounds like this is going to be our answer. But let's go ahead and look at D. So positive feedback is always bad. This is definitely not true. And any time where you can see a question that says is always bad, is always good, has a positive or negative effect, that's kind of going to be a red flag. This is not going to be your correct answer. Alright, so now let's look at another question. So a person gets cut and begins to bleed. Platelets are attracted to the site, so we have an increase in platelets. And these platelets are going to begin releasing chemicals that attract more platelets. This is going to be our key word here. More platelets are attracted. So we had an increase, and now we have a further increase. So this is an example of which type of feedback. Okay, think about that for a second. So both of our arrows are pointing in the same direction. So this is going to be positive feedback. Positive feedback. Okay, after you eat, your blood glucose levels are high. So we have high blood glucose. This is increased from our normal levels. So to lower your blood glucose levels, your body releases insulin. So we had an increase Now we are lowering our blood glucose. So we have a decrease in blood glucose. So both of our arrows are pointed in opposite directions from each other. So this sounds like what kind of feedback? Negative feedback. So we're maintaining homeostasis. We're maintaining our normal levels. All right, now one more question. Negative feedback, A, increases the effect of the original stimulus. B, is always good for the body. C, inhibits the effect of the original stimulus. Or D, has a negative effect. All right, think about that for a second. Pause the video. All right, now let's go through those together. So A, increases the effect of the original stimulus. So we had a stimulus. Let's say we had a decrease in something. So we're increasing the effect. So that doesn't mean we had a decrease and now an increase. That means we're increasing the effect. So the effect was to decrease it. So now we're increasing that decreasing. Sounds kind of confusing. But we had a decrease, and then we're going to have a further decrease. It's enhancing the effect. So this sounds like positive feedback. So this is not going to be our correct answer. Okay, B is always good for the body. This is one of our red flag answers. Okay, so this is not going to be the correct answer. C, inhibits the effect of the original stimulus. So let's say we have a decrease. Now we're inhibiting the effect. Here we were enhancing the effect, so it was in the same direction. So inhibiting the effect, we're going to go in the opposite direction here. We're going to increase it. We had a decrease. Now we have an increase. So this is going to be negative feedback. Our arrows are pointing in opposite directions. So this sounds like it is going to be our answer. Okay, just to be sure, let's take a look at D. Negative feedback has a negative effect. This is going to be another one of those red flag questions, so this is not going to be our correct answer.